Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and a Corpse for Christmas Eve, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. A Christmas Gathering Turned Deadly. The rain drummed a relentless tattoo against the cobblestones of the driveway leading to Ashcombe Hall, mingling with the distant echoes of laughter that floated through its opulent corridors. The great manor, draped in garlands of holly and bedecked with twinkling lights, appeared a scene out of a glossy holiday postcard, but those who ventured inside could sense the undercurrent of unease that lay thick in the air, more tangible than the scent of roasting pheasant wafting from the grand kitchen. As the clock struck 6, the heavy oak doors swung open, and Agnes Thornfield, the hostess, stepped onto the threshold with a chiming of bells, a small ensemble she had commissioned for the evening. Beneath her glossy fair hair, a shadow flickered across her porcelain features, masking her usual grace. Few took note; they were too absorbed in the warmth of the fire and the cheerful clinking of champagne glasses to notice that the hostess's smile was not entirely genuine. "Welcome, my dear friends. What a night to celebrate," she exclaimed with fervor, ushering in each of her guests. Among them was the famed detective Hercule Poirot, whose astute observations had made him a household name even among the aristocracy. Clad in his well-cut suit, he entered like a whisper of intrigue, a twinkle of intelligence sparking in his dark eyes. As the guests mingled, Poirot found himself near the imposing fireplace, the soft glow illuminating the faces of those around him. Miss Eliza Bright, an eccentric spinster, was regaling the assembly with tales of her cats and their antics. Sir Reginald, a portly gentleman with a robust laugh, occasionally interrupted her with jovial remarks. Yet it was Lady Millicent, dressed in emerald satin, who caught Poirot's attention not for her wealth or beauty, but for the anxious flicking of her fingers, betraying a simmering tension below her composed exterior. "Mon ami, tell me, how do you find this quaint gathering?" Poirot inquired softly, studying her. "It is an occasion, n'est-ce pas?" Lady Millicent replied, but her eyes darted towards the grand table at the center of the hall, where a notably unopened envelope lay. It was a mysterious letter, elegantly addressed to Ms. Agnes Thornfield, in private. Strangely so, for a Christmas gathering. "Joy and the spirit of togetherness. 'Tis what Christmas demands," Poirot mused, but his mind danced upon the subtle undercurrents of disquiet. Just moments ago, he had observed Agnes's hand tremble ever so slightly as she had pointed towards the letter, her brow creasing with concern before she turned away. Before he could pursue this thread further, a sharp scream pierced the jolly atmosphere, and the room fell silent. Agnes, ghostly pale, stood at the table, her voice trembling. "It's gone. The letter. It has disappeared." She looked around, eyes wide, with panic drawing all attention towards her. Doubt began to creep in. The laughter faded, replaced by a shroud of uncertainty. "Perhaps it is simply misplaced, dear," Sir Reginald offered, although his voice trembled slightly. "No. It was right here. I felt it, just a moment ago." Agnes's voice rose. The guests exchanged furtive glances. Her agitation was infectious. Poirot, ever observant, scanned the room with keen interest. "A mystery indeed," he murmured, inching closer to the table where the letter had been. He noticed faint indents in the polished mahogany, 3 finger marks, a whisper of shaking, and then in the ornate candle holder beside it, a waxed drip had pooled onto the table, glistening ominously in the low light. "Permit me, mes amis," he said, with an air of authority, taking charge of the gathering. "Let us recreate the moment. Who was nearest to the letter when it vanished?" All eyes turned to Lady Millicent, who now stiffened at the accusation, her hands clasping her purse. I only glanced at it briefly," she stuttered, but Poirot had caught the slight flush that crested her cheeks. "And yet, it appears that your gaze lingers longer than most," Poirot replied, every word laced with intrigue. "What was it you wished to discover, madame?" She stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "If you are so keen to observe, Monsieur Poirot, then why don't we question your friends as well? I saw you standing absently by me, engaged in conversation. A gentleman's sly maneuvers are hardly exceptional." A ripple of discomfort fled through the guests, but Poirot stood unruffled. "Perhaps not, but I observe, my lady, that you possess an urgency that stimulates curiosity. Did you want the contents of that letter, urgently?" Before she could respond, the weather outside worsened, the wind howling in a fury that rattled the windows, as if the weather itself conspired to drown out their unease. Just then, Agnes gasped, her eyes widening at something behind Poirot. "No, it can't be." With a swift turn, Poirot's gaze met the drawer of the amethyst curtain, caught slightly ajar, a figure emerging, water dripping from a slicked-back head. Thomas, the ever-reliable butler, stood just within. "Begging your pardon, madam," he announced. "The letter, it was indeed misplaced in the library." Relief washed over Agnes, yet the tension lingered heavily, like the sweet aroma of mulled wine gone sour. "Then why not bring it forth?" suggested Lady Millicent, curtly. Thomas hesitated, glancing towards Poirot, who raised a brow, urging him to continue. "When searching for it, ma'am, I saw something peculiar on the desk beside it," he continued, voice hushed. "A single crimson button. Not one of yours, Agnes." In that moment, the festive lights seemed to dim, casting eerie shadows across the room, and the air grew thick with anticipation. "A button?" Poirot echoed, his eyes narrowing, already sifting through the implications. "One that does not belong to our hostess? An intriguing twist indeed." As he considered the possibilities, he turned towards the guests, breathing in their reactions. Most remained oblivious, engaged in nervous chatter, but he noted the fleeting, guilty glance exchanged between Lady Millicent and Miss Eliza. "Your secrets, ladies and gentlemen, are no longer safe," he announced almost gleefully. "Just as the clock ticks toward midnight, a darker truth draws near." With this revelation hanging in the air, tensions clawed at the gathering's jovial pretense, leaving them teetering on the brink of chaos. The chapter closed on Poirot, his mind as sharp as any knife's edge, the elusive clues weaving a tapestry of deception and revenge. An envelope unopened, a letter gone, so very much yet to unfold, and with it the certainty that Christmas Eve at Ashcombe Hall would become a night they would never forget. Chapter 2. The Locked Room Mystery. The din of laughter had barely faded when, abruptly, an eerie hush swept over Ashcombe Hall. After the revelation of the mysterious letter, the guests feigned merriment, yet a palpable tension clawed at their throats. Outside, the tempestuous rain drummed its relentless beat, soaking the world in darkness while turning the manor into an island of flickering lights and muted whispers. It was against this backdrop that the atmosphere took a decidedly sinister turn. Minutes passed, and Poirot felt the air thicken with uncertainty. The guests' faces were masked in worry as they mingled uncertainly, laughter now a fading echo. The fire crackled in the hearth, shadows dancing ominously across the walls. Just then, a scream suspended the air. It came sharp, piercing the anxieties of the gathering. "Sir Reginald! Sir Reginald!" Agnes's voice pierced through the apprehensive murmur. Poirot turned sharply, his heart racing. The guests rushed towards the study, their faces awash with horror and anticipation. The magnificent oak door lay ajar, revealing a shadowed interior. Poirot swept into the study, almost instinctively placing his hand on the brilliant mahogany desk. There, where a glass of untouched sherry stood precariously, the figure of Sir Reginald was crumpled against the chair, his face blanched, eyes wide in eternal terror. "Mon Dieu, what has transpired?" exclaimed Poirot, crouching beside the body, his sharp mind racing through the implications unfurling around him. The door had been locked from the inside, leaving no apparent way for anyone to have entered after Sir Reginald's demise. Agnes, a breathless spectre, appeared behind Poirot, her eyes brimming with tears. I cannot believe it. He was so full of life only moments ago." "Check his pulse, Agnes," intruded Lady Millicent, who hovered anxiously by the doorway, her emerald satin gown a stark contrast to the grim atmosphere. "It is futile, my lady. He is gone." Poirot's voice was calm, authoritative. Yet an undercurrent of urgency flowed through him. A locked room with a dead man, simply seated, and no signs of struggle. Such a conundrum was not merely tragic, it was also tantalizingly intriguing. "Thomas!" Poirot called, summoning the butler, who stood at the threshold, water still dripping from his hair. "You claim to have held the keys to the study, am I correct?" "Yes, sir. I fetched it from Sir Reginald's key ring. He was the only one to possess it." His voice trembled, and he stepped gingerly into the room, attempting to avoid the grim tableau laid before him. Poirot gestured toward the study door. "Let us consider your actions, mon ami. When did you last see Sir Reginald in high spirits?" "Just before the letter's disappearance. He was preparing to make a toast, but—" Thomas faltered, eyes sharp. "I went to fetch wine, and by the time I returned, the door was locked, and—" The dreadful gasp punctuated the air, thickening the tension further. The detective stood, pacing slowly around Sir Reginald's still body and the locked environment. "What about the key, Thomas?" "It was on his person." "Of course. He always kept it there." A nod toward the slumped form. Poirot surveyed the guests now assembled at the doorway. Lady Millicent, with fingers twitching nervously. Agnes, her face ashen. Miss Eliza, who appeared slightly pale, but mostly bewildered. A small collection of witnesses, all united by terror and suspicion. Taking a deep breath, Poirot considered the implications of the key resting in the dead man's pocket. It is puzzling, this mystery. No visible struggle, nor a compelling motive. And yet a man is dead. A locked room suggests intent, but death was sudden. A trick before the eye. A scenario devious, yet clever. "Sir Reginald was in fine spirits, surely," muttered Miss Eliza from the back, trying to find a glimmer of logic amid chaos. Nothing seemed amiss. "Indeed," Poirot replied, "perhaps there lay a deeper layer beneath those festive cheers." He leaned closer to Sir Reginald's body, observing the back of his collar. A slight wrinkle caught the detective's eye, revealing a soft muddle of crimson inches from where it might have been sewed. "Do you see this, mes amis?" Poirot began, smiling at the realization while pulling back to address the others. "Upon further inspection, we uncover a single crimson thread. Curious it is, the same hue as the button discovered earlier." Gasps filled the air as Agnes recoiled. "But how? What does it mean?" "Ah, that is precisely the crux of our inquiry, dear lady." Poirot waved away her interjections, shutting them down with his keen gaze. "What motive lies behind the festivities? Did Sir Reginald receive any threats? Speak, Thomas." The butler, wide-eyed, stammered, "None that I know of, Monsieur Poirot. Except I overheard Lady Millicent mentioning financial woes earlier today." Lady Millicent gasped, her face flushing. "You misinterpret my words. I meant a mere discussion of burdens, not threats. Perhaps burdens felt more severe to those closer than I perceived," Poirot interjected smoothly, glancing at Sir Reginald. "Perhaps someone felt desperate enough to act." As the tension cracked through the room, Poirot shifted towards the door, locking eyes with each guest. "You are not merely guests still, but suspects, my friends. The game has only just begun." With that revelation, he and Thomas exchanged furtive glances. Thomas reached into the fallen man's pocket, drawn by an instinct, fingers firm yet shaking. "What if there's something in his jacket?" he suggestively pointed. "Go on," Poirot urged, his intrigue piqued. As Thomas produced a piece of folded paper, a hastily scrawled note, Poirot's sharp eyes gleamed. "Ah, a note?" Poirot pried it open with delicate precision. Its contents sent breaths hitching in the room. But before he could read further, a commotion erupted in the entrance hall, a loud crashing, bodies bustling, shouting, enclosed in the urgency of a muddled world outside. "Thomas," Poirot commanded briskly, "stay with me." Yet the urgency of the scene hinted at chaos that lurked beyond the might of the locked room and the walls of Ashcombe Hall. For as the door swung ajar, a figure staggered inside, white-faced and shivering, and the shock of recognition sent gasps rippling through the guests once again. The rain lashed against the stone walls as Poirot stood before an increasing storm of mystery and revelation, knowing full well that with every revelation emerged a deeper web of deception. The resolution of the locked room loomed heavier than ever, and now, amidst curses and unfolding shadows, they were teetering on the edge of a startling discovery. What had begun with festive cheer had spiraled into a treacherous dance among secrets, lives hanging in balance as they ventured closer to a truth all too deadly for the eve of Christmas. Chapter 3. Alibis that don't add up. The wind howled through the ancient oaks surrounding Ashcombe Hall, bringing with it the delicious chill of winter nights. Yet within its walls, an even colder atmosphere churned. As darkness settled deeper, the flickering lights cast frantic shadows against the stone, mirroring the chaos now brewing within. Poirot, standing over the lifeless form of Sir Reginald, felt the weight of the unfolding intrigue pressing against him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he proclaimed, raising his voice above the tense whispers, "I ask for your cooperation. It appears that we are not merely guests of this splendid evening, but rather reluctant players in a game most sinister." He surveyed their pallid faces. "We must unravel our positions, align our stories, and reveal the truths that dance precariously among the lies." Agnes trembled, her eyes glued to Sir Reginald, while Miss Eliza clasped her hands in some vague attempt at comfort. Lady Millicent had retreated further against the wall, emerald satin pooling around her like a bruised flower. Their alibis hung thick in the air, as meagre as vapor in the chill. Poirot turned to Thomas the butler. "Mon ami, begin with the guest's whereabouts before the tragedy unfolded. Draw each recollection into the light." Everyone shifted uneasily as the butler cleared his throat. "I went to collect the wine for the toast, as Sir Reginald had prepared to celebrate the season." His brow furrowed at the memory of his last innocent interaction with the deceased. "I was gone only a short while." "Long enough," Lady Millicent interjected, lifting her chin defiantly. "Long enough to have delivered any number of illicit actions oneself." "Enough." Poirot's voice sliced through the rising tension, commanding focus. "We will maintain decorum. Your truths must be shared with clarity. Start again, Thomas. I ask you, who was where?" Replacing the tumult of conjectures and accusations, the butler straightened, himself. "Miss Eliza was in the parlour, fussing over her dress, as I recall. Lady Millicent was contemplating the library in silence. You, Miss Agnes, stayed within reach of Sir Reginald, if I am not mistaken." Each of their alibis fluttered like moths under scrutiny. Poirot's keen eyes glimmered. "And yet, the flow of events concerns me, mes amis. Just before the toast was interrupted, I noted Sir Reginald appeared distressed, perhaps agitated. Did anyone query him as to the cause?" "Nothing of the kind," cried Miss Eliza, her face draining of colour. "He was ready for a lovely evening, life among friends." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Ah, yet I heard whispers of a telegram delivered just prior to the toast, even as our abominable storm raged." "A telegram, my dear friends, that insists this inquiry shall dig a little deeper." Before any questions could form, Thomas strode with purpose toward the table, producing an elegantly folded envelope, still precariously sealed. "I found this on the desk, where doubts hung heavy. It has not been opened." Poirot approached as though the mere act of opening the envelope would unleash darkness, his fingers delicate yet certain. He tore through the wax seal, revealing the neatly typed message within. "Ah, a blessing yet a curse," he murmured, absorbing every word. "It speaks of a fortune purportedly owed to Sir Reginald, a substantial inheritance born from family squabbles." Gasps erupted in the room. Lady Millicent's features hardened, her voice unsteady. That old rumour, utter nonsense, an estate lost, pending a court's decision. Surely such trivialities do not warrant killing. "Yet they may motivate someone lost amid financial ruin," Poirot interrupted, the revelation igniting his intellect like a spark kindled in dry brush. "A struggling heir may find desperation to be a valid catalyst for action, even violence." As he paced, the cocktail of emotions among the guests shifted. Fear, anger, and perhaps a touch of desperation danced in their expressions. "We are all entangled in shadows, though some faces shimmer with better light than others. Who among you has grievances rue-buried? Who clamors for a reckoning?" In the backdrop of biting winds, Poirot's retort rattled the gathered crowd, collapsing the facade of camaraderie. Agnes stepped forward boldly, her fear transmuted into a seed of clandestine fury. "You suggest reckoning, yet lay bare your own truths first, Poirot." Caught off guard, Poirot arched an eyebrow. "Mademoiselle, the spotlight must shine upon those nearest the stage of death, not on me, your attentive detective. Yet you, too, wield an instrument of shadow." "What do you mean?" she stammered, her fingers trembling with some concealed energy. "Bear in mind the crimson button, my dear. Now we have a telegram regarding inheritance. What hand would bear the burden of affliction over loss?" Poirot's expression remained neutral, yet the brazenness of his deduction hung heavily in the air. Agnes's face paled, then burned with an inner flame of fear. "No, I would never harm Sir Reginald. He was an obstacle, a rival, as whispers in the ether suggest," he pressed. "Perhaps even a gentleman denying you support for some reason?" Before she could construct a reply, whispers erupted among the guests, resonating with ambiguous notions of envy and resentment. The atmosphere bristled dangerously. Lady Millicent's voice cut sharply. "Enough of this charade, Poirot. I hadn't—" "Enough indeed," Poirot rebuked, commanding back the storm of chaos that had threatened to drown out reason. "A dangerous intersection of alibis we find ourselves in. I will seek further counsel from each of you." He turned, drawing in deep breaths as he prepared to probe the depths further for evasive secrets. The night marched on, but with every tick of the clock, it grew darker. As the gas lamps flickered, Poirot rewound memories of crossed timelines in his mind. Alibis had yet to be remembered, slices of life woven through fabric of deception. As he prepared to scrutinize faces, a distant clamor from the entrance struck a fresh chord of anxiety. More heavy footsteps, as another body stumbled through the doorway. And then he appeared, staring wide-eyed, clinging desperately to a note clutched in his shaken hands. The tension in the room crystallized as realization gripped Poirot. The latest arrival would turn the tides of their plummeting fate. Whatever he brought from the storm outside had urgency dripping off it, like the rain pelting the walls of Ashcombe Hall. As he moved forward, Poirot felt the swell of unseen threads closing around them, ready to unveil the secrets alive amidst the lies. Another piece was aligning in the complex puzzle, and he was desperate to see the truth in full. "Speak, my friend," Poirot urged, determination fueling his words. "For beneath the guise of innocence resides everything you hold dear." And thus, like the winter's night raging outside, the unraveling tale of Ashcombe Hall surged ever deeper into darkness, a darkness promising revelation. The game intensified, and Poirot was ready to pull it all into the light. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. The storm outside escalated, its relentless fury perfectly mirroring the chaos within Ashcombe Hall. As rain poured down, slashing against the aged stone walls, the flickering gas lamps illuminated a tableau of unease. Hercule Poirot stood resolute in the drawing room, his sharp gaze flitting over the collection of fraught faces before him. The heaviness of Sir Reginald's untimely demise hung thick in the air, suffocating the last remnants of festive spirit. "Messieurs and mesdames," Poirot began, his voice carefully modulated to cut through the rising tension. "There exists a pivotal inquiry which we must embark upon. The will of our departed friend, Sir Reginald." Murmurs of confusion washed over the guests. Lady Millicent's eyes widened in disbelief. "His will? Whatever do you mean, Poirot? Surely it is a mere formality." "Merely a formality, perhaps," Poirot mused. "But what if I were to suggest that the document is not where it should be?" A palpable silence fell over the room, broken only by the incessant drumming of rain against the windows. The butler, Thomas, appeared even more flustered. "But Sir Reginald would have left such important matters in order." Poirot's sharp eyes darted towards the fireplace, where the embers glowed, casting long shadows across the room. One would assume such order exists, yet I sense that the late Sir Reginald may have left us with more than just his estates. He may have left us a riddle, a game, if you will. He turned to face the assembly, his gaze penetrating the defences of each guest. Miss Eliza clutched her pearl necklace with white-knuckled fingers, her expression betraying a mix of fear and curiosity. "You speak as if there were something sinister afoot." "Ah, mademoiselle, your intuition is keen. It may be time for a reassessment of all past events." Poirot stepped towards the mantelpiece, allowing the weight of his words to linger in the air. "Where might one find such a vital document? Are there any rooms in the estate untouched?" "A vault, perhaps?" Lady Millicent suggested, though uncertainty coloured her voice. "Perhaps, perhaps. But may I remind you all, it is not merely the will itself we search, but the motives that surround its absence." As the spotlight of inquiry shifted, Agnes hesitated before speaking up. Sir Reginald was known to be a man of principle. I cannot imagine he would keep an important document without ensuring its safety. Her cheeks flushed as the other guests turned to her, skepticism brewing. "Ah, but did Sir Reginald live by his principles alone?" Poirot posited softly, a hint of intrigue sparking in his tone. "Financial burdens, family disputes, there are many layers to unravel." Eliza's eyes flicked toward Agnes, her voice sharp. "You mention family disputes. Perhaps it would do to examine the dynamics among the family members more closely, wouldn't it?" Though the wind howled outside with an ominous intensity, Poirot's attention was unwavering. He clasped his hands in contemplation. "Let us not cast accusations hastily. Instead, let us speak of relationships." Just as he outlined this intent, yet another crash of thunder reverberated through the hall, punctuating the tension-filled silence. Thomas fidgeted, his eyes lingering on the doors as if expecting transpiring revelations. "Before we disperse into conjecture, I ask that someone fetches the household records," Poirot instructed firmly. "There may be clues to Sir Reginald's intentions buried within those dusty pages." Lady Millicent paced, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her demeanour tinged with anxiety. "What sort of records are you speaking of? Surely everything was in order." "Therein lies my suspicion, madame. Records can reflect distorted truths, too." Poirot paused, allowing grim humour to puncture the tension. "Government, family politics, what minor details might illuminate the shadows lurking here?" The room filled with the whispers of overlapping suspicions and hushed theories, each guest grappling with the uncertainty that now enveloped them. Poirot observed their shifting expressions, the thinning veneer of civility eroding under the strain of unspoken truths. "The storm rages within and without, yet we are bound to reveal what has been concealed," Poirot declared, his voice resonating with steely resolve. He turned to Agnes, whose agitation reflected a burden of unresolved emotions. "Mademoiselle, you seemed quite close to Sir Reginald. Perhaps you hold, forgive my directness, insights other than mere acquaintance." Her eyes darted away as she struggled for composure. I had hoped he would support my endeavours," she stammered, her tone betraying hidden depth. "But it seems all we were left with was ambivalence." Poirot nodded slowly, his mind already weaving the threads together. Ambivalence can manifest in dangerous ways, especially amid unresolved finances. "Enough of this," Lady Millicent snapped, brushing back her dress as she rose. "You accuse us of all manner of impropriety. You should pick your words carefully, Poirot." "Oh, but I choose them with precision," he countered, unfazed by her indignation. Just consider, what if the will bears a weight that Sir Reginald wished to avoid detailing? It could have offered favoured fortunes that might spur envy. Thomas, emerging from his contemplative shell, rushed in presence and compromised air. "I'll see to fetching those records, Monsieur Poirot." As the butler disappeared into the adjoining rooms, the tension thickened like fog. Poirot resumed eyeing his suspects, their facade shattering with every pressing inquiry. "And what of you, Lady Millicent? Your own financial burdens are not hidden well, yes? A fear of losing the mansion, perhaps?" "Stop! Just stop!" she cried, her voice achingly raw. "I will not stand here as the target of your probing. Let the others speak." "Perhaps you hold the greatest motive, my dear, for that which fuels passion may also inspire destruction. But fear not, soon enough the truth shall come out." Suddenly, Thomas reappeared, triumph etched across his features as he brandished an ancient ledger. "Here it is, monsieur. Household records dating back decades." "Ah, that might prove delightful," Poirot murmured, reaching toward the compendium. As he opened it, the edges of the musty pages whispered of neglect. Yet as he scanned through the lists, one detail caught his eye, a notation in the margin marked "deceased" next to several familiar names. "Inheritance disputes often mirror the passage of time," he mused aloud, the tension vanishing momentarily as anticipation entwined their desperation. Names tied to Sir Reginald's will, but perhaps an even more interesting detail: missing. He flipped the page dramatically, his heart racing as he unfurled the drama unfolding. "There is a signature missing, a vital one." The guests gasped as the words struck like lightning. "A will, uncreated or merely hidden, friends. It appears the will that binds us may very well be the one never signed, and therein lies a tapestry of illicit emotions woven into each of your hearts." The hail of chaotic dialogue erupted, a frantic discord, as they all began to speak out. Among the cacophony, Poirot locked eyes with Agnes, his mind racing. "We are poised on the edge of breakthroughs, and yet I suspect we are still ensconced within darkness. Tell me, mademoiselle, what secrets do you harbor?" But before she could respond, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into momentary darkness, a prelude to the uncovering storm grumbling outside. Poirot felt the fraying thread of control slipping. "What madness is this?" Eliza's voice quivered. "I do fear, mes amis, that the shadows may yet hold more to unveil. Let us not despair, for every shadow conceals a truth yearning for illumination," Poirot declared, resolute. Just as the power flickered back, an agonizing scream pierced the air, snapping the guests into quiet horror. Poirot's heart raced as realization washed over him. Another life perhaps teetering, another motive revealed, another secret waiting to be uncovered. And as he rushed toward the source of the cruel sound echoing through ancient hall, Poirot understood one thing with crystal clarity. The will that was never signed was the beginning of questions only the truth could answer. Chapter 5. A Vanishing Act. The storm outside had intensified to a din of roaring winds and unrelenting rain, as if the heavens themselves sought to drown the secrets entwined within Ashcombe Hall. The echoes of thunder resonated ominously as Hercule Poirot stood poised in the corridor, an instinctual tension radiating through him, wrapped in the foreboding atmosphere lingering within the manor. He had barely had a moment to absorb the chaos of the drawing room when a startling cry broke through the noise, a sound that carried with it an unmistakable tinge of terror. "Agnes!" Poirot called out, his voice slicing through the surroundings as he rushed toward the drawing room. Yet, when he arrived, the scene was one of utter confusion. Guests standing in shocked clumps, and Lady Millicent, pale as a ghost, trembling at the center of a storm that raged on both outside and in. Agnes was nowhere to be found. "Where is she?" Poirot demanded, scanning the anxious faces around him. "She was here, mere moments ago." She ran down the corridor," Lady Millicent stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief and an emotion he could not yet decipher. "She seemed terrified, Monsieur Poirot." With a commanding gesture, Poirot led the way, striding into the dimly lit corridor, the heavy scent of damp wood enveloping him. The flickering lights overhead seemed to share in the uncertainty, casting long shadows that danced menacingly along the walls, whispering secrets of the past. "Agnes," he called, again, injecting authority into his tone, yet aware of an undercurrent of urgency. Stepping cautiously, Poirot noted the polished wood floor gleamed ominously underfoot, hinting at the trappings of careless luxury. He could feel the weight of the atmosphere pressing down on him, a burden of unspoken horrors that had woven themselves into the fabric of Ashcombe Hall. As he turned the corner, the distant sound of scuffling feet echoed through the hall, a fleeting sound that made his heart race. "This way," he urged, following the noise until it abruptly ceased at the entrance of a side chamber. Peering inside, Poirot's heart sank. The room had fallen into eerie silence. He stepped over the threshold, eyes swiftly adjusting to the shadows. A single gaslight flickered, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air. It was here, amidst the cobwebs hung like veils, that he noticed something peculiar, a delicate scarf, seemingly forgotten and caught on the edge of a chair. "Étrangère," Poirot murmured. He lifted the scarf gingerly, recognizing its exquisite fabric, familiar from the evening before. It was a piece that Agnes often wore, vibrant yet understated, revealing a hint of her personality, a woman whose emotions ran deeper than her smile suggested. The absence spoke volumes, and he felt an unsettling knot tighten in his stomach. In the stillness of the room, his mind raced, pondering the implications. "What game is being played here?" he whispered to himself. But the answer danced just out of reach. Was it fear that drove Agnes away, or was there something more sinister lurking in the depths of this night? Poirot stepped back into the corridor, tightening his grip on the scarf as he called out yet again, "Agnes!" His voice was firm, carrying a command that sought to penetrate the shroud of uncertainty. Behind him, the hushed whispers of the guests crept forward like ghosts emerging from the dark, each face reflecting something unique: worry, suspicion, curiosity. Lady Millicent stepped closer, her brow furrowed. "What do you think has happened?" "The lady fears something. That much is evident," Poirot replied, his mind sifting through the shards of knowledge gathered. "Perhaps there is an unseen hand making plays of desperation. Someone fears their hidden truths may be exposed." "Do you think it could be someone from her past?" Eliza interjected, her brow wrinkling in concern. "It's said she was once close to Sir Reginald's late cousin, who had a troublesome reputation." "Troublesome reputation indeed," Poirot said, deepening his scrutiny. "But we must tread carefully, my friends. It is all too easy to cast shadows where none lie." Thunder rumbled ominously outside, but Poirot's thoughts sharpened. He recalled the unsettling tale of Agnes's connections, which had emerged amid the chaos of their earlier conversations. It triggered a memory of a figure he had observed in the village, one whose presence lingered curiously long after they had departed. The guest, the visitor, the one who has yet to appear. He turned swiftly, glancing toward a window that looked out upon the rain-soaked world, as if sensing someone beyond it. The thought lingered, burrowing deeper into his mind. A ghost from Agnes's past had arrived at the edge of this storm, where mysteries often converged. No, not merely a guest, a participant in this dangerous tableau. With new determination fueling him, Poirot signaled for Thomas to join him. The butler approached cautiously, his brow damp with worry. "Monsieur Poirot, what do you require?" "Fetch the household records again, and ask if the villagers recall any news of Agnes's past," he instructed, already piecing together the connections within his mind. "We must know of any who might invoke fear in her heart." But even as he spoke, a shiver curled around him. The sensation of being watched, of an eye lingering just beyond perception. He turned abruptly, scanning the corridor behind, its shadows stretching and swirling, taunting him with their secrets. A creak shattered the tension, sounding like a whispering promise. Before he could react, a shadow darted past the doorway at the far end, vanishing into the folds of darkness. Poirot's instincts ignited. "Someone lurks. Come." He led the charge, tracing the shadow's elusive path. As he hurtled forward, his breath quickening, Poirot pondered how the pieces would certainly fall into place if he could catch this ghostly visitor. But a larger puzzle awaited him, a mystery woven in the fabric not just of Agnes's past, but tied into the very essence of Ashcombe Hall. The whispers were silent, but not for long, he vowed silently, for he would find the truth lurking beneath the surface. He raced through the dim corridors, each echoing footfall resonating with an urgency that matched the tempest outside. And as the storm rattled the windows, a sense of promise electrified the air. A revelation awaited them, a truth buried in the chaos that twitched just out of reach. Then, there it was, a glimmer through a half-open door. Poirot paused, heart pounding. Lifting the latch quietly, he nudged the door wide, and the tumult of the storm fell silent behind him, giving life to the secrets yet to be unveiled. Yet as he leaned into the gloom, Poirot's breath caught. Before him lay a single, half-completed painting, propped up against the wall, an unfinished portrait of a woman in mid-stroke, the unmistakable likeness of Agnes. A glint of metal caught the lantern's feeble light, drawing his eye to a peculiar locket clasped in her hand, something that seemed far more than an idle trinket. This was not a mere brush with fate. This was something far more deliberate, and the pieces of the puzzle shifted aggressively in his mind. Who had planned this elusive disappearing act, leading him to the brink of revelation? And what darkness, tangled within this art, could hold the key to what had been unfurling within Ashcombe Hall? As the tension thickened, Poirot knew one thing with resolute clarity. The cards were being dealt, and he was determined to discover who would win this perilous game. The next revelation awaited, agony rife with possibilities, and as he stepped further into the shadows, he whispered, "Mon Dieu, what fabric of truth lies hidden here?" But the answers, like the illuminating storm outside, remained distant, waiting, lurking, perhaps just beyond the next whisper of a shadow. Chapter 6. A plunge into the past. The wind howled violently around the creaking beams of Ashcombe Hall, its mournful sound echoing through the dim corridors. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the attic door, a looming presence that beckoned him forward into the enigma festering within the manor's highest reaches. The air hung heavy with dust and the faint mustiness of forgotten years, and as he reached for the brass knob, its chill sent a shiver through his spine. He could feel the convergence of unease and anticipation tightening like a noose around his heart. As he swung the door wide and stepped into the attic, the dim light from a single window cast long shadows that flickered with every gust of wind. The room was cluttered with boxes, ancient trunks, and forgotten memories, a cemetery of the past yearning for revival. Nothing had been disturbed in what felt like an eternity, yet Poirot sensed a pulse beneath the layers of neglect, a whisper of secrets ready to grant him access to truths long obscured. He began to sift through the hodgepodge of debris with deliberate care, each item a potential clue. Just then, his fingers grazed the edge of a weathered trunk, its surface blanketed in dust and time. Etched into the dark wood were ornate carvings that seemed to tell stories from another era. Poirot's intuition tingled as he produced his handkerchief, using it to clear the debris from the lock. With a soft click, the trunk creaked open as if it had been expecting him. Inside, dim light revealed an array of delicate scarves, frayed letters tied into bundles with faded ribbons, and black and white photographs of solemn faces, some bearing an uncanny resemblance to Agnes. His heart raced. Here lay the remnants of a narrative woven within this family's history, a tapestry splattered with the colors of betrayal and unspoken grudges. Poirot lifted a stack of letters sealed with a vintage wax emblem, the script flowing elegantly across the pages. Curiosity compelling him, he unwrapped one and began to read aloud, his voice echoing softly against the walls of the attic. Dearest Marjorie, the world is ever-changing, yet the truths of the heart remain steadfast. I fear my bond with you carries a price, one that we must unveil before it lies shrouded in darkness. He paused, a realization settling like a thick fog in his mind. Marjorie, who could she be? The surname evaded him at that moment, but he recognized the undercurrent of secrecy. In the penmanship, a whisper of anguish. Poirot's deductive skills sharpened. These letters spoke of relationships fraught with tension, and perhaps buried beneath them lay the catalyst for the chaos now enveloping Ashcombe Hall. Suddenly, an ethereal voice broke into the silence, high and trembling. What are you doing here? The voice belonged to Eliza, her figure illuminated like a spectre, framed in the doorway. The moment was heavy with unspoken emotions as she stepped forward into the attic's gloom, anxiety brewing in her wide eyes. Ah, Mademoiselle Eliza, Poirot responded, masking his surprise with an air of calm. It appears we have stumbled upon a hidden treasure of the past. Most intriguing, no? Eliza approached the trunk, her expression a blend of curiosity and apprehension. I thought these were all discarded. No one ever wanted to talk about them. They're just remnants of our family's disgrace. Disgrace, you say? Poirot's brow furrowed, observing her vivid reaction. Perhaps more like fragments of a story only waiting to be told. Would you care to join me, mademoiselle? There are truths here that may explain the shadows that lurk in your home. With a flicker of uncertainty, Eliza nodded hesitantly and moved closer to the trunk, a flicker of resolution lighting her features. Together, they began to explore further, piecing together the past through sepia-toned snapshots and tightly coiled letters, as fragments of whispers began to emerge from the ashes of neglect. As they sifted, Eliza's trepidation shifted subtly to intrigue. This letter speaks of a family heirloom that went missing years ago, something of extreme value. Her voice trembled slightly. It was said to hold the key to a family secret, a secret that destroyed bonds and left deep scars. As Poirot continued to examine the contents, he stumbled upon a photograph of an elegant woman wearing the very locket he had glimpsed the night before. Captivated, he turned the photograph over, revealing an inscription, "To Agnes, my true love, until the end." The name struck him. Agnes's lineage was tangled with an emotion that shifted at the very foundation of familial ties. "Mademoiselle Elisa," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "It seems there are deeper currents at play here. Could it be that Agnes's fear stems not merely from the present, but from past transgressions? Our dear Agnes is ensnared in not only her own narrative, but also in that of this woman, Marjorie. There lies a shadow of jealousy or affection, yet untold." Eliza stood transfixed for a moment, then shook her head. "I know of no Marjorie. My family has been riddled with secrets, but I've never heard that name. Or perhaps it has been spoken, cloaked in confusion, echoing as mere whispers among the shadows." Poirot leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "You see, my friend, family myths can mask true identities, and what one believes to be folklore can often be the seeds of reality. The Heart's history is a mosaic of truth and betrayal, and I believe we are on the verge of unearthing a pivotal piece." The thunder rolled again, reverberating like a heartbeat of the storm raging outside. With newfound determination, Poirot gathered the letters tightly in his grasp. "We must seek out the truths hidden in these words, examine the relationships, and in doing so, unlock the door to Agnes's torment." Just as he turned to leave, the attic door swung wide open, slamming against the wall, revealing the shadowy outline of Thomas, the butler. "Monsieur Poirot, there's been a development." His face was a mix of urgency and apprehension, and for a breath, the tension surged in the room. "What is it, Thomas?" Poirot pressed, concern threading his voice. "Agnes has returned, but she is not alone." A tremor of realization coursed through Poirot. Each word hung in the air, thick as the storm beyond, pressing on his chest. "Not alone. We must go." The ambiance shifted. What he had uncovered was merely a prelude, the shadows knitting tighter. The past and present threatened to collide as Poirot stepped back toward the door, a fervent desire to unravel the intertwining tales and secrets urging him on. With each step, he muttered to himself, "What game of shadows are we yet to explore? Who stands behind the curtain, manipulating this delicate tableau?" As he descended from the attic, new clues clutched tightly in hand, Poirot felt the eerie sensation of being watched, as if he had stirred a hornet's nest. The past was not just a memory, it was a living entity twined with vigilance and emotion, a collective breath, ready to mingle with the fury of the storm outside. Thus, he followed Thomas down the spiraling staircase, determination set in his stride, aware that Agnes's return was but the opening of another chapter, a dangerous plunge into the enigma lurking ever closer, threatening to consume whatever remnants of truth he might find. What revelations awaited? His mind raced with possibility, for with each unveiling, chaos grew closer to resolution. And as a flash of lightning struck, illuminating the darkness outside, he braced himself. This was merely the tip of the iceberg, and the storm was only just beginning. Chapter 7. Shadows from the Hearth. A sudden clap of thunder resonated through the grand corridors of Ashcombe Hall, rattling the delicate balance of the dimly lit study where Hercule Poirot had gathered with Thomas, the butler. The storm outside had intensified, rain lashing against the tall windows, casting fleeting shadows that danced eerily across the elegant furnishings. Poirot's eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and curiosity as he scanned the room, his gaze landing on a handsome, mahogany writing desk. Its surface was cluttered with papers, some yellowed and others still fresh, and it exuded an air of ambiguity, a place where intentions were both penned and concealed. Sir Reginald was always a man of secrets, Thomas remarked, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with an unspoken burden. Indeed, mon ami, let us see what lies hidden in this sanctuary of shadows. Poirot strode towards the desk, his senses heightened, as he began to sift through the assortment of papers. Every sheet turned felt like an invocation, a summons to the ghosts of Ashcombe. Just then, his fingers brushed against something unusual. A subtle latch caught his attention on the side of the desk, concealed beneath a decorative flourish. With a deft movement, he deftly pressed it down, and with an audible soft click, a hidden compartment sprang open. The flickering candlelight revealed a single envelope inside, aged and embedded with wax seal. Ah, voilà! A letter of great importance, I suspect. Poirot retrieved it, his heart racing with anticipation. He turned it over in his hands, studying the wax stamp. A familiar crest, no? The Sinclair family? His brow furrowed as he broke the seal with careful precision, revealing the contents within. With meticulous attention, he unfolded the letter, absorbing the elegantly penned script that flowed like a river of intrigue. "To whom it may concern," he began, his voice steady yet imbued with excitement. "The truth regarding the Sinclair heirloom remains buried amidst fear and deception. Should this letter find you, know that not all shadows are what they appear." Suddenly, the study door creaked open, and Agnes glided in, a vision of confusion and turmoil. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the flickers of the storm outside. "Monsieur Poirot, what have you found?" she implored, her voice heavy with urgency. "Ah, Mademoiselle Agnès," Poirot said, placing the letter carefully on the desk. "We are delving deep into the labyrinth of the past. Secrets are entwined like tendrils of ivy, each leading us further into the heart of this mystery." Agnes's gaze flitted nervously between Poirot and the letter. I must know what it contains. Lives are at stake, and I fear for my family's future." Poirot nodded, understanding etched on his face. "Then let us decode the message together, shall we?" They huddled over the parchment as the storm raged outside, punctuating their shared resolve. "It appears that our dear Sir Reginald had much to fear. A family heirloom long thought lost, entangled in shadows of deceit. This truth he speaks of, it may very well unravel the woven tapestry within Ashcombe." His fingers drummed thoughtfully against the desk. But whom does he address? The urgency is palpable. Agnes leaned in closer, enveloped by the atmosphere that crackled with foreboding. He always spoke in codes and half-truths, like we were to extract meaning beyond his words. A tremor of anger flitted across her features. "It has been a point of contention in our family. He didn't believe in revealing everything." As Poirot folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the compartment, a heavy silence descended, the weight of the storm thickening around them. "Then there lies a question, mademoiselle," he ventured, his gaze piercing into her. "What did Sir Reginald fear so deeply? Was it merely family shame?" Before Poirot could finish, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed outside the study. The atmosphere shifted as Eliza stood at the threshold, her expression a mix of apprehension and resolve. "I must speak," she interrupted, holding the door ajar. "You're all on a dangerous path, unraveling threads that should remain tightly knotted. The will to uncover the truth can often lead to peril," Poirot observed, his tone calm yet assertive. "What is it you know, Mademoiselle Eliza?" "More than you realize," she said, stepping further inside, her voice trembling. "I overheard a conversation between Thomas and Agnes just now, a secret that could shatter what fragile peace we have left." Poirot's brows furrowed at her admission, eyes narrowing as he observed the conflicting emotions playing across Eliza's face. "Hastily spoken words can be misconstrued, mademoiselle. Speak plainly. What truths do you bring to light?" And with that, Eliza took a deep breath, the tremor in her voice amplifying. "It concerns a betrayal among us, between family, between those drawn into the web of this curse. I believe Agnes knows more about the heirloom's whereabouts than she's let on. And, Monsieur Poirot, it was not Sir Reginald who sought to conceal the truth." The revelation ricocheted through the room as Agnes's face drained of color, her secret naked before the stormy night. "You should not believe everything you hear, Eliza," she snapped defensively, yet Poirot could sense the fragility in her tone, the fear of being exposed gnawing at her resolve. "Mademoiselle, Eliza, your words unsettle the very fabric of our investigations," Poirot said, fixing his gaze on Agnes. "If there are secrets within secrets, we must navigate carefully. Whom can we trust if treachery lies dormant amongst us?" Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting grotesque shadows that heightened the tension. It was a moment pregnant with possibility, each person starkly illuminated by the truth they either bore or concealed. As the storm raged on, Poirot clenched the side of the desk, his mind racing with interconnections. "Take heart, for the dark clouds may yet yield to clarity, but we must explore further. Unravel these layers before it swallows us whole," he whispered, the storm raucous around them. "There is much to uncover from the ashes of the hearth, and I feel the flames of Providence drawing closer." As he set to gather the letter again, an icy draught swept through the opened door, snuffing out the flickering light of the candle. Shadows danced malevolently on the walls, and in that pitch-black moment, Poirot sensed that they were no longer alone. Something, or someone, loomed just beyond their grasp, another secret, ready to awaken with the storm. The night felt darker than before, the storm's growl echoing a warning through the thick air. Poirot knew that the game was shifting, and with each tick of the clock, the boundaries of truth and betrayal faded further. "Let us proceed, before the shadows consume us," he murmured with resolve as he edged towards the door, ready to face whatever lay in the dusk. The hunt for truth had begun, yet it was also fraught with dangerous revelations that could shatter them all. The storm outside was merely a herald. The tempest within was yet to be unleashed. Chapter 8. The Eavesdropping Incident. A sharp crack of thunder reverberated through Ashcombe Hall, its rumble mingling with the sound of rain cascaded down the window panes. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the dimly lit corridor, his finely tuned ears pricked to the hushed voices emanating from the adjacent room. The tension in the air was palpable, intertwining with the looming storm outside, urging him to eavesdrop further. His heart raced, a rare surge of excitement for a moment so fraught with significance. The weight of hidden truths hung heavy in the atmosphere, and he felt instinctively that he was on the edge of a monumental discovery. Creeping closer to the door, he pressed his ear against the cool wood, trying to decipher the words coming from within. They were familiar, yet charged with urgency, a blend of fear and desperation laden in their tones. It was Agnes, her voice a mixture of anxiety and anguish, clashing against the resolute yet apprehensive timbre of Eliza. "You cannot simply let him believe that. The heirloom must be found, or else—" Agnes trailed off, the weight of her words cutting off at the peak of dread. Poirot could vividly imagine her fretting hands twisting together as she spoke, mirroring the emotional tempest surging through her. "Eliza, it's not just about the heirloom," Eliza replied, her voice rising slightly, punctuated by rushed breaths. "There are lives at stake, including yours. If they discover the truth, they may come for us." A shiver ran down Poirot's spine. The connection was clear now. The heirloom was not merely an object of family pride, it was a pawn in a deadly game that stretched beyond the individual ambitions of the Sinclair family. "What do you mean?" Agnes pressed, her curiosity tinged with trepidation. "Sir Reginald left more than memories behind." Eliza's voice sharpened, speaking with an intensity that bore a hidden agenda. "He was burdened by dark dealings, and if the wrong hands get hold of it," she inhaled sharply as another roar of thunder punctuated her words. "I will not let that happen. You understand?" Poirot absorbed every word, his mind racing with the implications. Sir Reginald's legacy was not one of mere familial strife, but a much greater calamity threatening to unfold. With urgency guiding his thoughts, Poirot shifted his position, careful to avoid detection, yet determined to extract more from this clandestine exchange. Outside, the storm intensified, the wind howling like a spectre warning of an impending trap, while inside, Agnes's next words wrapped a shroud of foreboding around them. "We must conceal it further. The shadows are growing longer, and not just for us." At that moment, Poirot's mind snapped to a recent revelation, the contents of the letter he had carefully examined only a short while ago. It mentioned intertwining realms of fear and deception, the truth lying buried under layers of intimidation and secrets. Was it possible that Agnes herself held the key to unraveling it all? And then, calamity struck. The door creaked and opened just a crack, revealing the pale face of Thomas, the butler, peering in, his expression tight with peril as he cautiously glanced around the dimly lit corridor. Poirot couldn't allow himself to be seen. He pulled back just as Thomas's eye caught a flickering shadow, lingering but undetected. "I heard something," Thomas whispered, the tension etched deeply upon his brow. "Hush! You mustn't—" Agnes hushed. Immediately, the fear in her voice unmistakable. With nimble precision, Poirot slipped into a nearby alcove just as the butler entered the room, forcing himself against the wall for cover. "Is it the letter?" Thomas asked closely, his voice urgent, eyes scanning the vicinity as if expecting hidden witnesses. "Are we in danger?" "We are always in danger," Eliza asserted quietly, her demeanor shifting in that moment from fearful to resolute. "You must protect the family, above all else. If the heirloom is not secured, you understand the ramifications." "However," Thomas replied hesitantly after a moment's silence, "if it's a secret worth dying for, we must tread cautiously." A gust of wind rattled the shutters, almost as if it were coaxing secrets from the walls, and Poirot felt the pulse of the manor quickening. He was rapidly piecing together fragments of a sinister puzzle that encased the lives of all within Ashcombe Hall. At that moment, a chilling thought pierced through the noise in his mind. Agnes was not solely seeking the heirloom for her family's sake. There was a deeper undercurrent, perhaps a desire to escape a lineage tainted by treachery, one that had wrapped her in fear since childhood. Still cocooned within the shadows, Poirot battled the instinct to confront them outright. He needed to let the threads unravel in their own time. But before he could draw a conclusion, a sudden commotion erupted from within the dim confines of the room. "What now?" Agnes exclaimed sharply. "We don't have the luxury of parlor games. This is serious." "You must listen to me. The family is not what it seems," Eliza began, before outside chaos suddenly clashed with words. A loud crash reverberated through the hall, followed by frantic footsteps echoing against the marble floor. Poirot rushed to peer through the door, just in time to see a figure darting past, dark, hooded, and purpose-driven, thundering towards the staircase. "Stop!" Poirot shouted instinctively, leaping from his hiding place with a sudden surge, his words resounding against the chaos of the storm. Before he could reach for the intruder, a whip of wind slammed the door shut behind the figure, sealing the secrets within. Breathing heavily, Poirot turned back toward the room, his mind racing as doubts crested within him. The approaching holiday loomed ever closer, and the tensions amongst the household were clear. The dark threads of conspiracy were tightening around everyone involved. The truth, he sensed, was spiraling closer into view, stubbornly coaxing the light into breaking through the storm. With fresh resolve, Poirot stepped determinedly toward Eliza and Agnes. "We must act now. Shadows grow, truths await illumination, and peril dances at our doorstep." Within this storm was both chaos and opportunity, and he yearned to unravel the mysteries enshrouded within Ashcombe, for every revelation promised to inch them closer to clarity. "Tell me," Poirot continued, with renewed fervor, "what lies deeper in your hearts, for it may hold the key to unlocking the full enigma of this tragic affair." Outside, the storm raged on, but Poirot's focus remained unwavering. Something critical was on the horizon, and as long as they pressed onward bravely, the answers would soon be unveiled. Chapter 9. The Trap is Set. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the ornate dining room of Ashcombe Hall, casting jagged shadows across the walls as Hercule Poirot took his place at the head of the table. The air was thick with tension, laden with the apprehension of secrets yet unspoken and the weight of a merciless storm raging outside. He had summoned the family, Agnes, Eliza, and the others, under the pretense of revealing his findings. In reality, he had set a trap, intending to draw forth the truth hidden within their tightly woven lies. He adjusted his crisp collar and surveyed the gathering. Agnes sat, her fingers twisted nervously in her lap, her eyes darting to Eliza with a mix of fear and ire. Eliza, seated across from her, radiated a steely resolve, her chin raised defiantly. The flickering candlelight mirrored the uncertainty buzzing around them, the flames flickering as if in cahoots with the storm outside. "Mademoiselle, Monsieur," Poirot began, his voice smooth yet commanding, "we are here, together, to bring forth the truth that lies buried beneath layers of fear and deception." He smiled, a small, knowing expression, and with a deliberate motion pointed toward the window. "The storm rages, yes, but it is nothing compared to the tempest that brews within these walls." "We are not children, Poirot," Agnes interjected, her voice sharp, cutting through the tension. "This is hardly the moment for theatrics." "On the contrary, my dear Agnes," Poirot replied, his gaze unwavering. "It is precisely the moment. You see, we find ourselves living a story riddled with shadows, and I have reason to believe that tonight, in this very room, we shall dispense with them." A thunderclap punctuated his words, and for just a fleeting moment, the electricity in the room surged, filling even the most stalwart heart with a sense of dread. Poirot leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if to invite the very air to listen. "What if I told you that recent tidings suggest that Sir Reginald's heirloom has not merely been misplaced, but is deliberately hidden?" Gasps rippled through the group as they exchanged wary glances, and Poirot noted the tightening of jawlines, the shifting of posture. "You see, it is not just a family relic we pursue. It is tied to something far more sinister." Agnes's countenance faltered for the briefest moment, but she quickly masked it, glaring defiantly at Poirot. "You are grasping at shadows, Poirot. Sir Reginald was a man of secrets," Poirot interjected firmly, "a man whose dealings went well beyond the borders of propriety. Eliza spoke of lives at stake, and I intend to discover why. Therefore, I have invited each of you here tonight to not only face the truths about the heirloom, but also the truths hidden within yourselves." "Enough. This is madness," Eliza snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "Madness?" Poirot echoed, glancing at her piercingly. "Or is it clarity that you fear? Consider, for a moment, the perspectives of your family members, each bearing burdens of their own." His eyes danced from one guest to the other. Each was a cog in a lethal machine. Before anyone could respond, a resounding crash echoed from the back of the hall, snapping their attention once more to the looming shadows. Poirot's heart thrummed in his chest. It was the perfect moment to unveil his setup, a calculated gambit. His brows furrowed in intense contemplation as he glanced toward the door. "Ah, it appears our illustrious host has arrived." He turned his attention back to the group with theatrical flair. "But not as you expect." A figure emerged from the darkness, a hooded silhouette stepping into the candlelight. "Thomas, what is the meaning of this?" Agnes exclaimed, her tone a mix of shock and indignation. As Thomas approached with a harried expression, Poirot noted the sudden rigidity in his shoulders. "The door was ajar, and I heard voices. I thought—" "Enough of your excuses," Eliza snapped, cutting him off. It was the first glimpse of anger she had allowed to surface. Poirot decided it was time to weave the final strands of his trap. "Ah, but there is one more significant aspect to consider, mes amis. The letter, which you believed had been lost to time, holds the key to everything. I have uncovered its whereabouts, hidden within the confines of these very walls." He gestured dramatically to the ornate woodwork that surrounded them, each carving becoming a potential sanctuary for secrets. The tension in the room thickened further. "You can't be serious," Agnes gasped, her hands trembling slightly. "I am quite serious," he replied, his voice unwavering. He lifted a small envelope from his coat pocket, its edges worn, and held it aloft for all to see. "And if I'm correct, it may well illuminate the greater danger we all face." "What danger?" Thomas's voice was laced with unease. Every eye turned toward Poirot in relentless anticipation. "An encroaching shadow that looms over the Sinclair family," Poirot stated, his demeanor shifting to that of a surgeon preparing to operate. "If I am to understand correctly, the heirloom is not just a relic of the past, but a bargaining chip bound with dark entities from which Sir Reginald sought to extricate himself, and I suspect certain members of this family have remained privy to those dark dealings." A ripple of uncertainty passed through the gathered guests, their faces blending into a cacophony of disbelief, fear, and contempt. I have set a trap within this trap, Poirot continued, his voice low, menacing, yet captivating. Each of you carries a fragment of this tale, unwittingly woven into Sir Reginald's destiny, and as the storm rises to a crescendo outside, so too shall our revelations. But remember this, those who stir the pot may not escape its simmering embrace. Feeling the electricity in the air shift, Poirot lowered his gaze to the envelope with unwavering confidence. Tell me, who among you shall be the first to unravel this riddle? Who shall set the stage for truths to emerge from the shadows surrounding us tonight? As silence enveloped the room, intrigue and dread mingled, and the atmosphere grew thicker still. Poirot held their rapt attention, his keen mind racing to bridge the distance between conjecture and revelation. In their shared vulnerability lay a potential for betrayal, and he would extract each thread until the fabric of their lives became visible. But as they teetered on the cusp of catharsis, the door swung open with a fierce gust, chill wind sweeping in and extinguishing the dim light from their candles. Darkness flooded the space, and in that fleeting moment, Poirot realized an ominous truth. Someone was watching, perhaps even waiting for this very moment of revelation to strike. In an instant, Poirot's focus shifted. A single, whispered voice from within the gloom, barely discernible above the storm outside, slithered into his ear. The words were but a warning. The heirloom is not the only thing worth dying for. As the last flicker of candlelight died, the shadows deepened, and in that vulnerable instant, Poirot understood the depths of deception that awaited them all. But instead of fear, a gleam of resolve shone in his eyes. The next chapter was inevitable, and he was prepared to unveil it. Clue by electrifying clue. Chapter 10. Confessions in the Snow. The wind howled as the first flakes of snow drifted down, clinging to the window panes, painting Ashcombe Hall in a ghostly white. With each gust of wind, the world outside was swallowed deeper by the white drifts, severing any connection to the outside realm. Within the ornate walls of the hall, the air felt electric, a potent mix of dread and anticipation. All that remained were the whispers of fear, echoing through the once grand dining room, now consumed by a palpable tension that threatened to collapse under its own weight. "Where is the letter?" Thomas's voice trembled, breaking through the silence that lingered like an unwanted guest. The room shifted uneasily as his words landed amidst a gathering storm of apprehension. Poirot raised an eyebrow, keenly aware of the yearning glances exchanged among the family members. It was evident that the stakes had risen, thrusting them into a darker fray than they had anticipated. "Patience, mon ami," Poirot said, his tone measured, as he flicked a speck of imaginary dust from his lapel, a gesture that belied the seriousness of the moment. "What we seek is not simply an object of material concern. It is entwined with blood, familial ties, and a legacy steeped in peril." Eliza, who had worn a mask of bravado throughout the evening, now seemed to flicker like a candle's flame, wavering between courage and uncertainty. "You speak of family, Poirot, but you do not understand ours," she shot back, her audacity fraying. "We are not what we appear." "In that, Mademoiselle Eliza, I wholeheartedly concur," Poirot replied, studying her closely, his mind working through the web of deceptions spun thus far. "The truth of your family lies hidden beneath layers of snow, just as the world outside falls into a restless slumber. But what lies beneath is illuminated by truths far darker than mere heirlooms." The tension thickened as Agnes, her face pale and eyes shimmering with unshed tears, moved uneasily in her chair. "You accuse us of deception, Poirot, but what do you truly know of our past?" "Only what has been revealed to me," Poirot returned, his voice gaining an edge. "But I am prepared to listen, should you be willing to share your secrets." As he spoke, Poirot looked up, feeling a crack of certainty swell inside him. The pieces were beginning to click, like the cogs of a well-oiled machine. "But this gathering, as you call it, is founded on fear. What if I were to tell you that among you lurked a possible killer?" A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, hands gripping the table as they recoiled into themselves. In the flickering candlelight, Poirot saw shadows rouged with guilt and terror pass fleetingly across their faces. "Who are you accusing?" Thomas demanded, his voice strained, too strained, a plea for innocence or a potent untruth. "Accuse no one, Poirot. We are here on shared ground, are we not? Shared ground upon the precipice of danger." Poirot countered, leaning forward with intense conviction. Years of secrets lay buried here, much like the snow outside, solidifying what should have been unearthed from decay. At that moment, a loud knocking resonated against the heavy oak door, cutting through the noise and scrambling everyone into a heightened panic. Poirot turned sharply, shifting his focus to the door, keenly tuned to the intricacies of the moment now spiraling out of grasp. "What now?" he murmured, his voice tight with apprehension, but he made no move to investigate. "Stay where you are," Eliza hissed, her voice low but laced with authority. "Do not open that door." But her impassioned plea rang hollow against the backdrop of the storm, a desperate cry swallowed by fate. As a voice seeped through the cracks of the wood, punctuated by the relentless winds, Agnes dropped her hands. "Let them in. Let whoever is out there in, Poirot. We mustn't allow the chaos beyond to trap us within our fright." The door creaked open slowly, and a snow-covered figure stumbled in, breathless and wild-eyed. "I had to come," shrieked the newcomer, a household maid they recognized as Lily. "I heard everything." "Lily," Agnes gasped, disbelief flooding her tone amidst a storm of emotion. "What do you mean?" "A confession," Lily exclaimed breathlessly, trembling as she held a piece of parchment aloft, chilled and damp. "There is something you must see, secrets your family wish to keep buried." "Forgive our caution," Poirot interjected, steadying himself against the walls of chaos looming large. "But after the tumult of the night, what exactly do you mean?" "I saw Eliza in the secret room weeks ago," she blurted out, her words tumbling forth like unwelcome snowflakes. She was digging beneath the floorboards, looking for something. She said the heirloom wasn't just a family treasure, a bargaining chip that would draw blood." The room fell silent as the implications reached for everyone, cloaking them in discomfort. Eliza's facade shattered, eyes growing wide and burning like embers. "You vile girl, you have betrayed me." "I did not mean to," Lily cried, her voice breaking. "You were beside yourself with desperation. What was I meant to do?" Poirot watched as Agnes's face paled, realization dawning upon her. "You knew?" "All this time," she whispered, the accusation hanging heavy in the air. "No, no, it is not what you think." Eliza's voice had dulled in the face of mounting dread, her bravado evaporating, exposing raw nerves long buried. The group turned on her, an ensemble of fury and denial embroiled in a fraying tapestry of family loyalties. Poirot stepped forth, his voice calm but carrying immense weight in the charged atmosphere. Mademoiselle Eliza, it appears the marrow of our mystery thickens. Who ever said that the past does not hope to bleed into the present? I swear, she stammered, her composure fractured as her defense crumbled under the collective gaze. I do not ask for the next breath, but for your truths, whether they lift the shadows or cast new ones. But, Poirot continued, surveying each face, beware. In a house banished from the world, the deeper the confession, the closer we dance with our demons. With every eye trained upon Eliza, the silence throbbed like the freezing wind outside. The snow continued its violent ascent, enveloping the hall in an eternal stillness where time stood frozen at the edge of revelation. Poirot prepared himself, piecing together the names, structuring the truths, all while listening to the chaos unfold. As her lips parted, all hopes tethered upon a fragile brink, he could sense an impending confession that would twist the knife deeper than any of them anticipated. Faintly, struggling to break free of the weight surrounding them all, a whisper escaped from Eliza's lips. What if it is not only the heirloom worth dying for? Outside, the snow fell thick and fast, burying the world beyond. Ashcombe Hall, in an indifferent, silent shroud. But within the dark heart of that stately residence, an insidious warmth began to pulse with its toggle in the depths of secrets yet to be unearthed. Secrets that clawed at the surface of not only their destinies, but the very future of the Sinclair family itself. Chapter 11. The Final Showdown. The air in Ashcombe Hall crackled with tension, an electric anticipation that mingled with the swirling snow outside. As the last remnants of daylight fled into the night, the drawing room only grew darker, shadows licking at the corners of the room with the flickering light of a solitary candle that trembled on the table. Poirot stood deliberately in its glow, surrounded by an amalgamation of uncertainty and dread. Each family member held their breath, a shared pulse of fear binding them together, yet their eyes darted anxiously around the room, assessing friends and foes among them. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot began, his voice even but heavy with foresight, "we are at the precipice of revelations so profound they shall serve as a reckoning, not only for Sir Reginald, but for the very blood that courses through your veins." He gestured toward the heavy tapestry that hung behind him, depicting the storied lineage of the Sinclair family. Each figure seemed alive in the candlelight, whispering secrets of antiquated sorrows and forged ambitions. All eyes turned towards Eliza, still pale from the accusations hurled at her only moments ago. The bravado that once empowered her now lay in tatters, exposing the raw, anxious depths of her character. Facing the growing scrutiny of her family, she swallowed hard, every shaky breath betraying a fierce denial. I have done nothing." The waver in her voice cut through the thick atmosphere, and several gasps echoed softly. "Yet," Poirot pressed, his gaze narrowing, "one must ponder precisely what it is that you wish to conceal, Mademoiselle Eliza, for a proud ancestry has a way of distorting its truths." He stepped closer, the flickering light casting lines of shadow across his finely hatched brows. "On the night of Sir Reginald's murder, it appears the heirloom was indeed coveted, yet not for the reasons you have shared. It was also something far richer, perhaps even a means to an end." "A bargaining chip that draws blood," Agnes whispered under her breath, recalling Lily's urgent plea amid the confusion. Eliza's defenses crumpled further under Poirot's relentless scrutiny. "What? "What do you mean by that?" she stammered, her composure shaken and face flushing pale like winter's ghost. The detective turned to Thomas then, seeing the tension threading through his shoulders. "And you, Monsieur Thomas," Poirot continued, "what of your promise to your father, the late Sir Reginald? You sought the heirloom out of love for your family, yet was there not a darker motivation behind your eagerness to inherit?" Thomas shifted in his chair, his jaw tightening as guilt crept into the corners of his expression. "Perhaps it is you who does not understand the weight of our legacy." "Legacy," Poirot echoed, weaving through the room with the grace of a dancer. "Or perhaps merely the weight of bloodshed, a pressing debt that sought resolution long before this dreadful night." Suddenly, he turned sharply, his gaze piercing through the shadows. "Madame Agnes, your tears have concealed a deeper hurt, have they not? Your brother's dominion was not to be challenged by you. You desired to be the torchbearer of a family tale, yet have remained buried beneath layers of loss. However, desperate women choose desperate paths." Agnes recoiled slightly, but found her voice. "You presume to know us, Poirot, but you understand nothing. The heirloom, it would have secured our future, not just financially, but as a family." The tension in her voice quivered, revealing the fragility of her resolve, like glass on the verge of shattering. "And yet it is woven into the very fabric of deceit," Poirot countered, his eyes glimmering as savant reasoning sparked within him. "My dear friends, each of you holds a thread in this tapestry, yet strands are missing." He paused, leaning forward ever so slightly. "Tell me, what transpired in the secret room? You all must wonder why it was sealed so tightly, as though to hide sins of the past, a past you have allowed to dictate your choices in this very moment." "I have seen nothing," Eliza declared, but Poirot silenced her with a mere raise of his hand. "Ah, but you are mistaken. I believe young Lily caught sight of something else entirely," Poirot said, "an empty box beneath the floorboards, and she overheard crowning words that sought to expose the true heirs to the mansion which Sir Reginald intended to revisit." Agitated murmurs seeped from the assembled family as they exchanged startled glances. "But," Thomas started, shaking his head, "the heirloom is our heritage." "Do not lay claim to nobility on blood alone," Poirot murmured, adjusting his lapel with practiced timidity. "For the night burgeoned with deceit, a lethal concoction of ambition and jealousy. And you, yes, you, Mademoiselle Eliza, you thought it would reinforce your claim. Yes?" Eliza's lips quivered, the mask of her confidence slipping away, leaving a stark vulnerability that hummed against the backdrop of the howling wind outside. "I only wish to see us flourish." "Flourish, yes, but without bloodshed," Poirot shot back, holding her gaze. "Yet it comes down to this. Was it not to reclaim your rightful place, to uproot the legitimacy of fear and uncertainty with blood?" The room grew thick with accusation, where breaths seemed to constrict, and Poirot paused, sensing the pivotal moment he had sought. "And so I must ask again, what if it is not only the heirloom that is worth dying for? I surmise that linear trajectories in emotions lead to circles of despair." Eliza's expression twisted into something darker, a profound vulnerability marred with hidden rage. Just as Poirot sensed he had reached the mound of truth, a sudden crash echoed from the window. The impact of heavy snowflakes collided violently against the glass, throwing the room into chaos. "Get away from her!" Lily screamed, pushing through the group, brandishing something glittering in her hand, a sliver of glass reflecting light. a hairpin eyeglass that had suffocated many a secret. "I will tell everyone." "Enough," Poirot rose above the cacophony. "What more do you wish to reveal? For we tread dangerously close to the revelation of our tragic deliberations. Will you challenge your own kin in pursuit of the truth?" As Lily found her footing, trembling but unwavering, she raised the hairpin higher. "It was not only an heirloom, Poirot. It's connected to your mystery, a bloodied mystery." A gasping silence fell as the significance of her words rippled through the family. Poirot's eyes lit with insight as the chilling implication shifted the tone of their gathering. The focus, once entirely on Eliza, now shifted like the wind outside, revealing new layers of complexity. The detective stepped forward with vigor, the icy wind now swirling within him as he threaded the intricate puzzle anew. The tension thickened, electrifying every detail, capturing the collective fear and expectation. One simple truth hanging in the balance. It was a truth that could shatter every illusion they had built. Behind those ancient walls, the echoes of the past clamored for resolution. Just then, as he turned to address the gathering with the weight of conviction upon him, something clicked within Poirot's mind, an epiphany bursting forth just as he opened his mouth to speak. There, in the depths of familial ties, lay a final unspoken truth, a revelation that could expose the killer lurking within. And he knew, deep within that sacred embrace of secrecy, the next step they would take might lead into darkness deeper still. But that, dear reader, is a tale destined for the pages yet to be turned. Chapter 12. The Truth Beneath the Mistletoe. The bitter chill outside Ashcombe Hall had intensified, the wind howling as it swept through the creaking trees like a lament for the secrets buried within. Rain lashed against the windows, its relentless rhythm echoing the tumult within the drawing room where Poirot stood, poised with an intensity that could slice through the thickest of fogs. He had gathered the Sinclair family together for one final confrontation, and the atmosphere was heavy, with suspense, every gaze fixed on him like moths yearning for the flame of truth. "Mon cher," Poirot began, his voice calm, yet commanding, "it appears we have danced long enough around the truth. The time has come to delve into the shadows that lie beneath the mistletoe." He could see the slight trembling of Eliza's hands on her lap, the pallor in her face contrasting sharply with the fateful resolve that had overcome her moments ago. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within. Every drop and gust seemed a reminder of the storm that was about to break in their midst. "Surely," Agnes interjected with a newfound assertiveness, "we do not intend to dismiss the genuine grief that binds us in this moment. There are more pressing matters than merely exchanging accusations." Her eyes flicked nervously towards Thomas, who sat rigid, fists clenched. He bore the pall of guilt, yet his brow furrowed with indignation against the weight of the family legacy that threatened to smother him. "Grief and betrayal," Poirot corrected gently, "are but two sides of the same tarnished coin. One cannot exist without the other in this family. I have observed each of you, your mannerisms, your whispered regrets, your veiled intentions. A deep insecurity gnaws at your foundation, does it not?" At that moment, Eliza, the last bastion of feigned composure, crumbled anew. "What do you know of insecurity, Poirot? You, who remain untouched by the haunted past. You speak of us as if we are mere puppets dancing to your tune." Her voice trembled, revealing a passionate undercurrent beneath her previous detachment, and Poirot could read the layers of distress etched upon her features. Ah, but does not a puppeteer observe carefully? Poirot countered, a glimmer of insight illuminating his eyes. Each thread of your lives is knotted by hidden desires and resentments, leading inexorably to the midnight hour when the truth can no longer be ignorable. He stepped closer to the familial tapestry that adorned the wall, fingers brushing over the intricate stitches that told their history. What joyous memories you present, yet how many of these are wrought from the tragedy of ambition. The heirloom, yes, coveted, but also a mirror reflecting your deepest fears. At the mention of the heirloom, Thomas muttered, "My father's desire was ours. It was never for himself." But the tremor in his voice pierced through the resolve he attempted to portray. Poirot's penetrating gaze darted between the family members, dissecting their dynamics as easily as if he were separating the strands of gold from silver. "And what if," Poirot resumed, tilting his head thoughtfully, "the real motive for your father's anger ran deeper than simple distinctions of inheritance? Is it not possible that the heirloom was merely a catalyst for unresolved grievances?" The room fell silent, the words twisting in the air like smoke in a deserted room. Sir Reginald knew something. Lily finally spoke up, her hands clasping tightly around the glass hairpin she held. "He had discussions with Aunt Agnes just before—" Her voice faltered, and she cast a wary glance at her aunt, who remained impassive, but watched her with rarely concealed distaste. "Ah, such a revelation," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing with the thrill of discovery. "The whispers of family intrigue grow louder. What dark conversation transpired that night? It seems we are treading upon treacherous ground." Lily shook her head, defiantly. "I only overheard something regarding other claims to the family line, but I did not understand. Please, Poirot." "Then allow me to enlighten you," Poirot interrupted, stepping back to regard each one present in turn, eyes alight as winter's squall raged outside. "Dear Madame Agnes, your implications run veritable circles around your own motivations. The stakes were high. Perhaps your brother viewed it as necessary to maintain power over you despite affection once shared." "But I wouldn't betray him," Agnes retorted, a stab of defensiveness surfacing. "We were family. I merely wished for recognition, not—" "Selfish ambition wears many masks, non?" Poirot continued, his voice gaining momentum. "Yet fate can often place unelected wearers upon a delicate tapestry. So it begs the question, who had more to fear from disintegration of that silence?" Thomas shifted, flicking his gaze nervously toward Eliza, who was visibly shaken, but found her voice to say, "Stop this circle. Whatever fickleness your reasoning holds, we've already lost enough. Is it loss that fuels us, or fear of possession?" Poirot pressed, advancing thoughtfully. "You believe in the promise of an heirloom, yet it conceals perhaps what was never yours to hold." In the depths of their incredulous silence, Poirot's mind raced forward into the tangled web of relationships. Each revelation beckoned another shard of clarity, tearing down proximity as emotion ran high. Consider, dear friends, love and betrayal reside closely about a familial hearth. But one question remains, hidden beneath that festive mistletoe. How deep does loyalty run when bound by blood? With every breath, Poirot could sense the pulse of anxiety spilling over. Each glance and clenched jaw a veiled admission of guilt. He began pacing, allowing the tension to build deliberately. The night of Sir Reginald's demise, the heirloom was worth more than material possession. It embodied secrets and perhaps violent desperation. Someone clearly longed to silence a voice. Eliza's eyes darted, the flicker of anxiety giving way to a peculiar glimmer as she said, "You think I'm capable of murder? What madness!" "No, ma chérie, merely a desire to reclaim your rightful place," Poirot countered swiftly. "But the murderer is cleverer than even you believe. The concealed truth lies not in the mundane, but within grasp of familiarity." The cumulative tension in the room bristled further as Poirot landed resolutely at the climax of deliberation. "Ah, but here lies the essence of our probe." He pointed to the shattered frame, standing remnant on the mantelpiece. "With shattered glass lies shattered trust." Lily gasped, lifting the hairpin as though summoning a spell. "It couldn't be." She stumbled through the darkness surrounding her. "We must look deeper." "Then let us cease with games," Poirot declared sharply, the air crackling with anticipation. "For come the morning light, we will reveal who among you is guilty of binding the heart with lies and betrayals so profound that the season's cheer will turn mournful." "If the past holds too many secrets," he mused, "let us now uncover where the truth lays hidden beneath mistletoe." As the storm raged on outside, the storm within surged to a breaking point, and Poirot stood at the eye, a master of deduction, ready to unveil the final act. And as he prepared to unravel the final complex ties that bound them all together, he sensed that hidden motives had only begun to scratch the surface of revelation, holding the chilling promise that darkness lurked closer than anyone could dream.